Roger Montgomery, and welcome to this week's Video Insight. Notwithstanding the embarrassing and globally condemned display of attempted psyops, obvious ignorance, gaslighting and grifting towards Ukrainian President Zelensky at the White House, the next most talked about subject is tariffs. What might be useful, however, is not yet another discussion about what they might mean for markets, but instead an explanation of what they are and how they work. Tariffs are taxes governments impose on goods and services that are either imported into or exported out of a country. They're typically applied to regulate international trade, protect domestic industries, or generate revenue. A tariff is essentially a financial penalty, or sometimes an incentive mechanism slapped onto the price of goods crossing borders. For example, if a country puts a 10% tariff on imported steel, a $100 shipment of steel from abroad becomes $110 at the border. Now, there are fixed tariffs. A fixed tariff is a set amount per unit, for example, $5 per tonne of wheat, or an ad valorem tariff, which is a percentage of the goods value, e.g. 10% of the price. More commonly, governments collect this tax from the importer, but sometimes it can be collected from the exporter. When a tariff is imposed, it's enforced at the point of entry, like a customs checkpoint. Importers typically pay the tariff to the government, and that cost is often passed down the supply chain. Step one is the importer paying the extra amount to clear customs. Then, to cover that tariff, the importer might raise the price of the goods for wholesalers or retailers or even consumers. As is often the intent, the consequent higher prices may shift demand as customers buy less of the imported goods and turn to domestic alternatives. Governments typically set tariffs based on policy goals, trade agreements or political pressure. For instance, the US might slap tariffs on Chinese electronics to push companies to manufacture locally, as we're now seeing with Apple committing to the construction of a manufacturing plant on US soil. One of the obvious first-order consequences is higher prices for consumers. If a $50 imported shirt now carries a $10 tariff, consumers are paying $60 for that shirt. Less obvious, perhaps, is the revenue from the tariff making its way into public coffers. In 2022, US Customs collected about $100 billion from tariffs. Tariffs are often designed to protect local industries. For example, Australia's luxury car tax was pitched to protect local manufacturing of Ford and Holden vehicles. Tariffs can help alleviate competition from cheaper foreign goods, giving local manufacturers room to grow, become more efficient and survive. But as the demise of Australian car manufacturing revealed, tariffs or any kind of protection measure of an inefficient industry aren't a cure-all. When tariffs discourage imports, they have the potential to narrow a trade deficit, which otherwise occurs when a country imports more than it exports. In addition to direct consequences, a less obvious one is revealed when companies have to scramble to find domestic supplies that don't exist or relocate production, which can take time and a lot of money. The US tariff on Chinese goods imposed since 2018 have pushed some manufacturers to Vietnam or Mexico. Thus, tariffs may not have the desired effect of bringing manufacturing onshore. Another significant second-order consequence is retaliation. The countries aggrieved by tariffs on their own exports can hit back with tariffs themselves. When the US raised tariffs on European steel in 2018, the EU responded with tariffs on American whiskey and motorcycles. And it had an effect. In 2018, Harley-Davidson's Europe sales were $46.6 billion. At the end of 2019, sales had fallen by $2 billion to $44 billion. Another consequence for the imposer of tariffs is the nudging of overall prices higher. Economists estimate first-term Trump-era tariffs added about 0.2% to US inflation. Moreover, tariffs can spark trade wars and sour diplomatic ties. Not that Trump cares. The US-China trade spat since 2018 is a textbook case. Both sides dug in and global supply chains took a hit. A popular real-world example is the US tariffs on washing machines from 2018. A 20 to 50% tariff was slapped on imports to shield American manufacturers like Whirlpool. The direct result was that import prices jumped and Whirlpool gained market share. But the indirect cost was that consumers paid $1.5 billion more for washers and dryers over a couple of years, jobs didn't increase as much as hoped, and production costs rose too. Tariffs are a blunt tool. They can prop up local jobs in one sector, say steel, but screw over others, like auto manufacturing, which relies on cheap imported steel. They're also a gamble. Protection might save an industry, or it might just make it lazy and less competitive long term. Economists argue over them endlessly. Free trade fans say tariffs distort markets and hurt efficiency. Protectionists say they're vital for sovereignty and jobs. The data's mixed. Tariffs can boost specific sectors in the short term, but the broader economy often pays a higher hidden cost with higher prices and lost trade opportunities. And I suspect that's what the stock market is betting on right now. That's all we have time for, and we look forward to seeing you next week. In the meantime, continue to follow us on Facebook and Twitter.